Hello Year 7, welcome to Lesson 8 in your Chaucer Scheme of Work. Okay, let's start with your key vocabulary. We've got archetype. Now, archetype is a model or a typical example of something. So what I want you to do is think about the traits of an archetypal hero. So what are archetypal heroes like? What traits do they have? So stop the recording now and write down your answer. Your second keyword is virtues. Let's have a look and see what that means. So virtues is a trait or quality that is deemed to be morally good and thus is valued as a foundation of principle and good moral being. So virtue. What virtues do you consider that you possess? And if you want to aim higher, which of the following qualities do you consider to be the most virtuous? Honesty, patience, courage. So you pick one of those and then explain your answer. Okay, let's go back to archetypes. So some traits of an archetype are, for example, they might have to prove themselves on a quest, they might have a special weapon, they have to be brave. So they're examples of typical traits that an archetypal hero might have. Okay, for example, you think of characters like Superman or Wonder Woman, Harry Potter, Mr. Darcy out of Pride and Prejudice. They're just examples that you might be thinking about. Okay, your knowledge goal for today is to use language choices for deliberate effect through your own portrait writing. And your steps to success are how to plan and write your own portrait, how to use language choices to create your impression. Okay, now let's have a look. We've got several characters here, all famous people. I think I know some of them. So we've got Trump, Donald Trump, Boris Johnson, Kim Kardashian, her husband, whose name I've forgotten. Then we've got, I've forgotten her name, but I know her. You'll probably know these characters anyway. So what do the general public think about these people, and how might they make fun of these people in TV shows, film and literature? Donald Trump and I think Boris Johnson are quite easy examples. Donald Trump, for example, you know, in particular, his hair is always one that people exaggerate because it is a comb over, and I think it's held down with super glue or some equivalent, and they often exaggerate that feature. And Boris Johnson as well, he's got that very flyaway baby-like hair, and it is that probably would be a feature that would be exaggerated. Okay, let's have a look. Challenge task. Can you think of an example of satire written about or made about one of these celebrities on the board? So if you're feeling really, really brilliant today, have a go at that challenge task. Now, these caricatures, a caricature is where they exaggerate something, a quality about someone or something to make it funny. So if you look at Barack Obama, they've sort of slightly exaggerated his ears, made them look a little bit more sticky outy, and his smile, so he's got nice big shiny teeth. So they will pick something out, and this is what you're going to be doing when you come up with your character. You're going to be exaggerating a feature or features. Let's have a look at the next one. That's it, Taylor Swift. The name completely escaped me earlier. Here you've got Taylor Swift. They've exaggerated some of her outline of her jowls and her cheeks and her eyes. They've made a little bit more smaller and narrower. Okay, nice slender neck, which they've elongated. Okay, so let's have a look at the next example. Theresa May. So she started off the Brexit process, if I recall, and if you see, she's wearing a big bulky necklace. She's she's often seen wearing jewellery like that. You can just see a peep of it in the actual photograph. And she's got the Brexit papers there. She's dressed for business in her suit. Yeah, she's got the Union Jack earrings because obviously she was leading the Brexit talks. So there you've got them, the bits that they've exaggerated about her to make it a caricature. Now you're going to be writing a portrait. So thinking about the two that we've looked at, which was the pardon seller and the monk, that's what you're going to be doing. You're going to be choosing a famous person to write a portrait for. So remember that it needs to be satire and comedy. So whoever you choose, you must be able to exaggerate a feature of them. So for example, let's look at Donald Trump. Think about Donald Trump again. The bit that you would exaggerate would be his hair. Okay, so you're going to think about your character and what you can exaggerate about them. And these satirical bits where you can send them up, make them look a bit silly sometimes. So look at the portraits of the pardon seller and the monk to give you some inspiration and ideas. How were they described? What did they look like? What kind of language did Chaucer use to describe the two characters? Because in his way, he was actually criticising the church and the people, and this is what they did, because obviously the pardon seller, he's selling pardons, which obviously is not really something that you can do, but he was earning money for this by, the example that I've used is if somebody was telling lies, he would sell you a pardon and effectively say that you're forgiven. And even pardons were sold to those people that had already died by conning people and saying that, buy this pardon from me and then they can move on to heaven. They might be in limbo up there at the moment until you hand over that money for this piece of paper to say that their loved ones would be pardoned for whatever sin they made when they were alive. So effectively no more than con artists, really. And the monk himself, the monks were considered people that gave up their life for obedience and their love of God. They used to pray and help other people. That was what they did throughout their life. And yet the monk that we looked at loved anything other than that. He used to go out hunting. He used to wear more exotic and flamboyant clothes that were trimmed with, for example, that squirrel fur. He wore gold. So he didn't really adhere to the stereotype of the monk. So stop the video and think about the character that you could choose, the famous character, and look at how you could exaggerate features of them and what you could write about them. So describing your character, having a look at the drawing of the pardon seller here. Look at these quotations. So he might have had a strange voice, so it's been described using a simile. It's like a goat's voice, so think about the sound that a goat might make, and this is exactly what the pardon seller used to sound like. And again, his appearance wasn't very pleasant. His hair was as yellow as wax, and he had no beard and never would. It makes him sound quite juvenile, not someone that might have age and wisdom on his side, so quite young. What could you use to describe your famous person? Could you use a simile or a metaphor to liken your character's voice to something else or an aspect of their appearance? Yeah, so maybe they might have had eyes that looked like something that was a bit unusual, for example. How could you make it comedic? And how could you be funny without being overly mean and nasty? So remember, we're not being really unpleasant to them. It's just a bit of a send up, just making fun of them. Okay, so you would have written your portrait, and it doesn't matter which you do first, whether you draw them or write about it first, the choice is yours. So now you've written your portrait, It's time to draw a caricature of them, and remember to label it with quotations. So if you've done your written portrait first, you could pick quotations from there, but you might choose to do it the other way and describe them in a particular way and pick out those features that you're going to incorporate in your written portrait. So stop the video now then, please. Your final feedback. So we've got archetype. Who was the archetype for your character? Virtues. What virtues does your character possess?